Please take an opportunity to read this information regarding the study that was conducted by the University of Amherst. It's really important and pertinent information regarding EEOC and those persons that file complaints, the employees that file them. Thank you. Thank you for coming back to listen to me, and please continue to share the links to these videos. Also, some of the additional information, applicable laws, links for those will be included in the general information below the videos. For this part, we're going to talk about the EEO, or Equal Opportunity Employment Office at Shaw Air Force Base. A reminder, it's known as the EO office for military members. Again, there is evidence to support any of the allegations that I'm making throughout the course of these videos. And also to repeat, if Shaw feels that these allegations are false and don't have merit, I challenge them to speak openly, publicly about it. Not in the dark, but publicly. So what I'd like to explain is, unless there have been some recent changes to the EEO office on Shaw, it's still under military command. It's not an independent agency. So what does this mean, and why is this fact relevant? It means that the installation of the wing commander is the final authority deeming whether a complaint can be moved forward or shut down. It means that the applicable laws become secondary to the commander's decision. It means that active duty members working in the EEO office, of course, they're sworn to follow their orders, okay, of their superiors. So at Shaw, law tends to go wayside. Now, years ago, the EEO office used to be located in the building shared with family support, which is Airman Family Readiness, as they call it, or Family Readiness Center. They had an independent entrance of their own, so nobody could see people coming in and out. It gave visitors a sense of privacy and ease in going to the EEO office. That way, if they decided to file a complaint or just inquire, nobody knew. It was up to them to make the decision what happens next. Now, at some point, there was a decision made to put the EEO office inside the wing commander's building, okay? The base commander. This means all eyes are on the visitors that come in. Can this affect the number of prospective complaints or concerns to be addressed? It's just something to think about. If the EEO office was inside your boss's office, they had a room in there, how comfortable would you feel going in? Okay. Now, more recently, they moved the EEO office literally across a walkway from the commander's building to what's called the Military Personnel Flight, MPF. Now, MPF is a high traffic area at Shaw. Most customers struggle to find a park in their building because the parks are always occupied. I would guess maybe 95% of the time. So how comfortable can people feel to come to the building when they have to go through so many different people? Now, questions that come up are, one, the comfortability of people feeling free to go into the EEO office. Two, if it's in these certain specific areas, if the EEO office is in these specific areas and people are scared to go in, does it skew the number of possible reports filed for the installation numbers when the numbers have to be submitted to Big Air Force, meaning the higher ups, DOD. Now, there's an affidavit that I have, and it's from a former member of leadership. The person was civilian. And I'm going to read you an excerpt from that affidavit that he submitted. He gave me permission to use it. So here it is. And I quote, "My role as the EEO manager was to ensure the laws and procedures were followed so every complainant felt comfortable with reporting discrimination. Shaw has a concerning pattern of practice of intimidation of their civilian employees, members of the military. Both groups are cognizant of the intimidation and retaliatory practices utilized at Shaw and are worried about keeping their jobs or the negative effects to their military careers. I am also concerned that witnesses are intimidated and coerced or forced to testify falsely. I also have grave concerns about," and he names a member of leadership, a lawyer, and he says that she's now an administrative judge with the EEOC. She's also an active participant in the illegal pattern and practice of witness intimidation at Shaw while she was assigned there. I was eventually terminated because of my efforts to thoroughly investigate 3 credible sexual harassment cases that were filed in the EEO office during my time as the EEO manager. Disturbingly, shortly after my termination, the sexual harassment cases disappeared from the EEO office. They were never investigated. I'm concerned that these actions are still occurring at Shaw, and there seems to be no effort or recognition to question or investigate the illegal practices occurring at Shaw. End quote. Okay, so there's one spot where I did not name the person that he was speaking of that is now at the EEOC. So what happens is one of the 3 cases that he mentioned that disappeared, they actually had to seek legal redress outside of Shaw in order to force Shaw EEO to investigate. And that information, of course, is public information and can be found when you Google the different content. Now, one other practice that Shaw EEO has, and I have to speak to Shaw, not about other people, but to Shaw. Can you imagine if something happened to you and there was a list of witnesses that saw it, whether it was somebody hit your car and the person was saying something counter to what happened, or somebody robbed you and there were all these people around, the bank was robbed, all these witnesses in the bank. And the police say, "Oh no, we can't interview your witnesses. We can't interview." Now, when you have someone that has been assaulted in some form or discriminated in some form, and there's a list of witnesses, and the EEO office refuses to interview them, what does that mean? What does that say to you? It becomes a question of the victims against the assailant, alleged assailant, their word against each other. So what's the purpose of anything? Where do the laws come in play? Now, during my interaction with EEO office, one of the senior master sergeants, now retired, she expressly stated to me on multiple occasions that they do not have to interview my witnesses. And I gave them a list of witnesses. How can they move forward to determine whether a case is valid or not? How can they investigate a case if they refuse to interview witnesses. At some point, this same senior master sergeant that retired, she stated that I didn't submit a witness list. But then I produced a copy of the complaint and a copy of her email recognizing, acknowledging my list of witnesses. And then all went silent. Now, while EEO records, some are specifically, they're supposed to remain with EEO. A lot of them are confidential. Some are specifically marked in big bold letters, confidential, capital letters. Okay? Now, this EEO office, during the same time this senior master sergeant was there, released some of my documents from long time ago, years ago. They released them to the Human Resource Office, members of Mission Support Group, members of the Logistics Readiness Squadron, and members of the Fuels Management Flight. And I'm not quite sure how many others may have seen it, but I know there was conversation about the previous incident because it was brought up in what was supposed to be a wellness meeting by a chief, one of the defendants in this case, in my case. So what happens is Fuels Management Flight, the first line supervisor folder is supposed to be very minimal, but she had my whole entire human resource file, which included information from back from, I don't know if she was a baby or even born yet. But nonetheless, it was determined because they had that, they had violated my privacy. They had a Privacy Act violation. The complaint was submitted to Shaw Air Force Base privacy officer and investigated. So I'm going to get further into things that tie into EEO in the next video. But there's more to come. It's going to tie in the leadership, human resources, and EEO, and in respects to reasonable accommodation. There's going to be more to deal with harassment and things like that. So I don't want to keep you too long in one particular video. But again, I encourage you to come back, share the videos, talk about it, spread the word that somebody needs to pay attention, that these employees at Shaw need assistance. We all have to do our due diligence. Thank you.